Hey everyone, Enees20, and it is time for some more review reading. I meant to do this one earlier, but things. And I was trying to get my one-shots out because I have a backlog of shit I want to get out. Anyway, so since we last left, I finished Phantom and I submitted 2 more one-shots to fanfiction as well as a few more rights, or maybe one. I don't even remember, to Tumblr. I'll worry about those some other time. So yeah, I finished Phantom, yay. That was a lot of fun, that was a fun story to run through. I got 5 reviews to read here, all from Rexora888, good times. So yeah, let's go. One of them is pretty long. Well, most of them are, but that's fine. We will begin with the review on Chapter 5, A Spirit's Mistake. Good times. I remember that chapter, that was a fun chapter to write. So many good memories. Anyway, let's begin. With a title like that, sounds like the Phantom's getting sloppy, or at least sloppy enough that the investigation teams got a nice win in their sails as a result. Yep. Exactly. I wonder if there's a way to incorporate the 10 level difference means enemies will ignore you in regards to the indigent. Like, maybe they know better than to mess with you as long as you don't mess with them. Be neat if one day someone makes a field documentary or book on various indigents and their habitats. In the meantime, the enemy index and our imagination/observations will have to suffice. I imagine so. Because yeah, that I always forget about that in game. Even if I know an enemy in game will not attack me, I still like to avoid them, especially if they're strong. Like, I think there are, in this game and in the original Xenoblade, there are like some really strong enemies that are, I guess docile is the word. They will not attack you unless you attack them, or I guess walk right into their character model. But even those enemies, I'd never get close to. I'm never confident to just walk by them. It's like with Millosaurs, those things don't attack you unless you attack them, with the exception of Lucille. And even then, Lucille has a really weird view thing. It doesn't really see you 9 times out of 10. Unless you're like flying by in a skeleton, it gets really upset. It's no Library of Congress archive, but at least they're one step closer to NLA's first public library. Yeah, I put in a bunch of, I referenced this in the final chapter too, but I put in a bunch of Shannara references in the story. I mainly put in things from my own life. Like, there's a point where I think it's Cruz or Janix that refers to Abyshin, their pet, as a demon child, and I do that with my pets all the time. So yeah, that's fun. And of course, Abyshin is the name of a character from Tales Symphonia, and the Shannara books are that's my favorite book series of all time that they're reading. And Al-Anon and Walker Bow are both druids, and they're both awesome. I just thought it'd be funny to have Elma and Cruz kind of like, not really argue, but like just snap back and forth about it. Much as I like seeing Alexa and Janix being cute together, this is categorized as Avatar Cross Elma. I actually did not know that. So it's just as nice seeing them play off each other like that too, even if it isn't as direct. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely, my favorite thing about that is showing the differences between Janix, Alexa, and Cruz and Elma's relationship in this same chapter, because you can see Cruz and Elma, the way I see it, they've been together for a while, so they're not, I guess they're just less open about it, like less flirty, less suggestive with each other, but they can still be, as shown later in the story. They're just more naturally comfortable with being around each other, whereas, as evidenced by this chapter, Alexa and Janix are still in their honeymoon phase, I think it is. So that's why they were looking forward to the paperwork. Hope there aren't any surveillance cameras. I realized that like later, because they are in Blade HQ, the big building in the middle. They're in a specific room with all this data and information, all this paperwork and boxes. That was just like all the boxes were thrown in there and then they were forgotten about, because like life holds more important. We'll do this later, and they never did. Which I can totally relate to that. But yeah, that was actually a fun scene. That scene actually happened with Janix Alexa completely, what's the word? It's not, I didn't set out to write it. I started writing it and I'm like, huh. Like, I read the first few lines and I'm like, let me try some more. And then I just experimented with it, and that's how it went. So it wasn't an intentional thing. I was still considering taking it out completely, but I'm like, you know what? Nah, it's a natural part of life. They've been together for a month. I think. I think I rescheduled the chronological order in like a few days. I've been meaning to make a timeline to actually pinpoint how long it's been, but I'm working on it. It's really frustrating because I have to read every chapter of every story and make note of when they say day or few days have passed to make a more accurate timeline. I got my own calendar too. Hopefully we'll be able to share that later. Q, Price is Right losing horn fail. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Absolute fail. So none of the boys thought to just try the just Google it solution. I mean, I like actually trying to think on the problem for looking through what I've got first before taking the easy way out looking on the internet. But I think with a 6-man serial killing spree going on, the easy ways would be the first way to try. Yeah, they did. Their first, Torres was the first one who came into the place to look up the information on the dossiers. And when he couldn't find the paperwork, he tried using the data bank there to just type in the names and basically Google it. Nothing came up. He's like, hey, Solomon, nothing came up. And Solomon's like, shit. So then Solomon came in, looked through the paperwork, and then he also tried the Google approach. He's like, yep, nothing there. And then Cruz did the same thing, and Janix and Alexa came by. Basically, at some point, which I actually don't think I ever specify when it is in the story, so I might as well say it now, the Phantom puts the information back in the databank. I don't ever really know when, but the way I see it is that it's part of him playing with them, I think, as he reveals in chapter 6, that he had taken the dossiers and just hidden them, but decided it'd be more fun to leave him back and see if they'd find him. You know, it was all a part of his plan to leave a trail sort of to himself, but at the same time leave a bunch of evidence to someone else. So the overdrive gear, I take it, is the same as the Japanese version, where it's not built into MIMS exclusively, but it's an external part. I always like that explanation since it makes sense for Trueform, Elma, L, and Celica to use that since they're fleshies. Wonder how they can deal with the stress, though, especially the latter two. Yeah, that's true. It's like overdrive is very powerful. It makes you crazy cool and all that stuff. I imagine it works better with... because the only other people who ever use overdrive who aren't in MIMS are Xenos, so I imagine that means Xenos are just more stable, I guess, stronger. I don't know, but yeah, the way I figured it in the story is that it can be separate, but it can also be built in. It really depends on the reasoning for it. So, like in the case of when Celica and Trueform Elma go out on missions, they actually have the overdrive gear, like they carry it with them. Whereas when they're in their Mimisomes, it's inside them. As shown from the finale when Janix stabs through the overdrive gear within the dude's back. Lower back is where I imagine it is actually. To like just knock it off and turn it off. To think that all it took to find that footage were the two girls being cute with each other and putting off their work. Yeah. Things happen. They made up for it, which, by the way, I forgot that scene. Oh my gosh, I love the phone call with Cruz. That was one of my favorite things to write, with Alexa being incredibly awkward. It was fun. I had way too much fun with that. I see what you did there. Why doesn't the Phantom just find a bunch of mirror stones and put them in boxes? Should solve the problem of missing limb veins. Shit, I meant to look up on the Xeno Wiki what a mirror stone is. I honestly forget, because a lot of the collectibles in the game do like really interesting things, you know, like the information. It was the same in the original Xenoblade. They have a lot of information for these little items. Yeah, I think the Phantom is funny because it's a lot like Metal Face. When they first encounter Metal Face in Xenoblade, they just start calling him that metal-faced Mechon because he's made of metal and he has a face and he's a Mechon, you know? Duh. To specify which one it is they're talking about. And then they're revealed that his real name is in fact Metal Face. Or at the very least Metal. And it's like, wow, they were incredibly on the money there. So in this case, they called the Phantom because of his habit of committing these murders and never being seen, like a ghost. And it turns out that his whole vendetta is against Phantom Pains. So it's like incredibly like fitting, right? It's like, huh, what do you know? You know, that kind of thing. So I kind of did that in that whole sort of way. So not as much Hush as Professor Pig, except for the fact that Pig leaves his flawed victims alive and turns them into perfect dolls. In other words, not like Pig at all. I know the Phantom's actions are reminding me of some Batman villain. Maybe I have the wrong franchise. Yeah, I actually wasn't too sure about Professor Pig. I'm not too familiar with Professor Pig. But I know a lot about Hush. Taking all the pieces of people to try to make himself look like Bruce Wayne and stuff like that. Hush is pretty cool. And yeah, I was thinking like that there would be some reason as to why he was taking the Mim parts, and I think I forgot to put it in the story. So there was like a reason in my head as to why he was taking the Mim parts, and basically is that even though he has grown used to overclock, which I guess this is bouncing back and forth, but I guess since the story's over, you would know. It stresses his Mim. He gets used to it, but it gets to the point where the Mim parts just start refusing or like just wearing down. So another reason that he searches for these very specific people is not just for the phantom pains, but also to take their limbs and replace his his older, like basically rusting sort of is the word I can think of, Mim parts with fresher ones. Of course, that would mean that he would have to go to Benton more for replacement parts, and it's like I don't think Benton would ever really knowingly work on the Phantom, but I don't know. And he could always just threaten him. But that was another string of idea that I had in my head that I ended up just not putting in the story for whatever reason. But I feel like that's that's an explanation. You can take that explanation, do with it whatever you want. It's not really necessary ultimately. I mean, he already did do the augmentations, so I think that should be enough. Well, shoot, that's 2 dead in such a short span. Lisa wasn't Torres. I thought for sure the moment he was revealed to have been an amputee, he was dead meat here. He's not quite off the chopping block, side character that he is, but dang, that's brutal. I wonder if Ben knew he would get it for letting the investigation team dig up as much as they had. Phantom's starting to act like a cornered animal now from what it sounds, but that just makes him all the more dangerous, so the team better get back on pace. Can't wait to see where this fic goes. I can smell the climax coming. Boy, were you right. Chapter 6 is the climax. Yeah, I imagine Benton had an idea. There's a lot of questions you can always ask. He's like, why didn't he just say something, you know, because it would have helped, but I guess that would have made it too easy. I don't know. Mystery is always hard because you have to make sure that you have an answer for literally everything. But I think, regardless, that I did do pretty well. And yeah, he murdered a lot of people like crazy. Good times. Very quick. Yeah, I was actually planning originally in an older version of the story that was in my head for Solomon to be an amputee as well. And there was a line of dialogue in the story of Solomon being like, me too, like, and saying what part of him is missing. I think it was a leg, like just a foot or something. I can't remember exactly what it was that he was missing, but for I guess that felt to me a little too on the nose, because it's like, oh, so now they're both amputees, which means I felt like by revealing Torres as an amputee was a pretty big giveaway, but I felt like if I had revealed both of them, I don't know exactly what my problem was with both of them being amputees. I mean, just too convenient, but I just wrote that part out. Phantom's Pain. Here we go, Chapter 6. The Phantom sure gets around quickly, from Hill to the MMC to the back office, and all that evidence got erased too. Things sure look pretty dismal. Sounds like the perfect time for a turnabout. Yeah, I was thinking in my head, how do I, like, portray that the Phantom pulled this off? You know, that specific portion. And in my head, ultimately, the answer was he killed Hill forever ago. Not really forever ago, but maybe hours and hours before, and then went to the MMC to do everything that he did there. And knowing who the Phantom is, it makes a bit more sense. It's just that eventually it took a few hours for someone to walk into Hill's shop and be like, oh shit, he's dead, and then report it, you know. Originally, actually, Hill was shot to death, but I felt like that would have made the response a lot more immediate for people to hear gunshots going off. And the dialogue revolving around the investigative crew's knives was originally their guns and all this stuff, and it was a bit different. But I eventually changed it to knife just because I think it'd be quieter. Basic, like it would be quieter, and it would make more sense as to why it took people, in theory, a while to find Hill dead, and then report it, and also give the Phantom time to get to the MMC and do everything he did there. Assuming the Phantom isn't one of them, if a crime unit officer was missing his or her knife, or if it was stolen, wouldn't he or she have reported it though? Seems irresponsible not to do so. Yeah, unless the Phantom was the one who used his own knife. But yeah, it would be irresponsible. I'm pretty sure that if they would notice, unless they just didn't, but who knows. 6 chapters in, and I'm shocked that I didn't think of the possibility of the Definians being involved, and that no one attempted to suspect them. I know it's probably not them, but with paranoia that stirred up in NLA with their various involvements, and as was hinted at in Hello Xenos, I just find it odd that no one's brought up or dismissed the possibility. That, once again, is me not using xenoforms at all in my stories, as I very clearly don't do in Skulls and Love. But at the same time, I think my reasoning behind not using it, and aside from the fact that I just didn't think of it because Xenos are like not at all in the forefront of my mind, was that they're good Xenos now, the Definians. Like, they've moved on to do their own thing. But at the same time, not a lot of people know that, / not a lot of people are convinced of that. So yeah, it definitely, maybe I should have brought it up. Maybe Solomon should have brought it up or something. But at the same time, there would have been no way to know, because Definians could assume the identity of whoever. It would have been even harder to find the Phantom, I think, that way. I can't pretend to know how they're done, but one would think that surgeries would be recorded by the doctor performing them, if only for reference sake. I was a little bit confused because I said that, yeah, they took down like notes about the operations and how long it lasted, but I guess you meant like actual video recordings. And I guess we could toss that in with the camera recordings of the MMC that were just deleted after the fact. I think. Can we toss that in there? Huh. I don't know, but I'll just toss it in there. So that explains the speed of the Phantom that night, and there goes any chance of the Phantom being a Xeno, since they can't even use Mim parts to enhance themselves. Knew it. Figured that it was convenient that all of this evidence was just suddenly pointed to Solomon being the killer. Only thing is, how did Torres ever get his emotions under control the whole time, or was Harriet wrong about the emotional outburst? I kind of realized after the fact that Torres was really, like, every time those characters were talking, they're always like, what's Torres up to? He's over there. And I don't mean that as in like oh, what's he doing? I meant that just in he was always like somewhere else. Like, there was a few scenes where he was there with them I can think of, but a lot of the time he was always either in the back offices or in the room with the recordings, you know, somewhere else doing something. So maybe that was when he like let the thing go. But basically, the emotional outburst thing was indeed just to kind of link it to Solomon, since he's very emotional about this. But maybe he has just grown used to it, in a way, to keep his emotions in check. Maybe that's what he does when he goes home after a night of killing and being an asshole. He just screams. I don't know, gets it out some way. Maybe killing people is what gets it out and, like, you know, relieves his need to have an outburst. So to what end was Solomon left alive? I presume that he would have been the scapegoat in case Torres got away with killing Janix and Cruz. That way he pinned their deaths, as well as the other 8 victims in Solomon, with the planted evidence, and no one would ever be the wiser. But why not just let the Phantom mystery go unsolved? Let it become NLA's first cold case. I doubt anyone would have traced it back to Torres, not without the protoplasmic fluid scanner. This is true. Solomon wasn't supposed to be left. Real talk, like absolutely real talk, not just from the story, but from my perspective. I had planned to kill Solomon at this point of the story. Like, I had planned Cruz to come to the apartment and find Solomon dead there. But like, after 5 chapters of working with the guy, I myself were really attached to Solomon, and I wanted him to stick around as another OC that I could pull and use in the future, along with Harriet and Falcon, and the other 2 doctors that were named in this chapter. I wanted to be able to have some more OCs kind of like sprinkled around the Cruz and Janix universe, so I could rely on them if I ever needed them for a specific thing, and not just have to rely on the canon characters in game. So I decided to keep Solomon alive for that reason. As for the story reason, he was, as they explained in the next chapter, he was literally about to die by the time the MMC guys got there. If they had gotten there a moment later, you know, I mean, I don't think Torres really planned for Cruz to find him so soon, or maybe Torres just didn't plan for Solomon to still be alive by the time Cruz found him. By all accounts, he should have died, but he managed to survive just barely. In which case, Torres would have then killed Cruz and Janix, and then he would have been able to put together all this evidence that he put in place, and it would have been like incredibly incredible. And then everyone would link it to Solomon, then they find Solomon dead, and they'd all just assume maybe he killed himself out of the guilt, or maybe or killing Cruz and Janix was the final thing, and he's done. And since he was done, he decided to X himself out, in which case Torres would just be able to be like, haha, I did it, you know? Like, he walked away scot-free, and no one ever solved the case. Or at least they did, but not until everyone died, and the killer basically got away with it, so to speak, by killing himself. But yeah, so I hope that helps. Yeah, I honestly kept forgetting about the fucking protoplasmic fluid scanner. Like, there was a point where Janix gave it to Cruz. Like, there was a version of the story where she actually did give it to Cruz, and then he would use it, and then he would just have it on there. But then she wouldn't have it on there, and she's the one who was directly meeting the Phantom. She was meeting Torres in the woods. And it's like, well, I mean, I could just have her not use it, but after making Harriet make such a big deal about it, she kind of has to have it. So then I had Cruz, I put in that line of dialogue where he's like, nah, you keep it. And so, but then I wrote the encounter multiple times with her talking to Torres, and she kept initiating the fight without ever using the scanner. So, like, I kept forgetting to use the damn thing that I gave her. I finally did. I put that version in the story where she does it one last time to be absolutely certain. So MIMs have the equivalent of pressure points. Wonder if that was one of the points Alexa shared with Gabuit a while back. Probably. Yeah, there's like, because I imagine they're joints, you know, so there's like something in here that if you break it, it's just the arm just flip, it won't work anymore. The same with, you know, and the feet and everything like that. That's just how I imagine it. That just because of the way that it's built, it's a joint, there has to be a catastrophically terrible point for you to get nailed in the joint, you know? Oh, I was hoping she'd clock Torres' head clean off his mim. Guess a head crush works too. It's like also wish his left hand was cut off at some point. Just karma for what he did to his first 6 victims. Yeah, I didn't really think about it until I read the comment, but at the same time, like, but he's never really had an issue with the fact that he lost his hand. It was more the fact that everybody else got theirs back. Because even as a mim, he still had a prosthetic hand. He refused to get a real hand on his mim. Let's see. Where was I? I lost it. I scrolled like 1 inch and all of a sudden the words are unrecognizable. I guess Janix is going to be rocking an eye patch after all, unless she's okay with getting a replacement eye. But man, no way Alexa's going to keep her cool with this one. Yeah, when I read that, I literally went into the next chapter and added a lot more dialogue between Alexa and Janix, because originally her realizing that just there wasn't enough of you almost died, you know, and all that kind of stuff going on there. So I added a lot more there. And I was thinking about the eye patch thing, but I really want to do the heterochromia thing instead. I just got a really good taste of your more intense action writing here. I know it's been done in the past. Janix, a few areas of Scales and Love. But this was really well done and fleshed out in comparison. It's almost as if I was watching the fight take place, like Homer did back when he wrote the Iliad. That would be a little bit less gruesome, a bit. Really looking forward to Mission now. I also, for some reason, you have this image of the two... I also have, for some reason, just this image of the two Prairie Lepics, Vespers, and that Esculas in the area, just looking at the conflict, and going back to their business, grazing, floating about, all like, nope, not gonna get involved. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, look at that guy just tapped that other guy, and that guy, like, flew, like, 50 feet through the air. Yeah, let's not mess with that shit. Yeah, I love Overclock. I love writing Overclock, and just, basically, it's like Dragon Ball Z shit. They just, like, punch each other, and they just go flying. Really love following the mystery. In case you're worried that the loose ends came together too quickly, I thought it was fine. I've seen a lot more rushed endings to mysteries where it's really hard to get the logic behind it all sink in before the case is over. Yeah, it was my main worry about writing this, was just solving it, basically, for the ending. All this case needs now is a debriefing, which is what Chapter 7 is, and a few more loose ends to tie up one. How did Torres manage to get a hold of Blade HQ documents and MSC security footage before all this started? This would answer how we got the broken pod's missing protoplastic fluid tube. What was Ben's reason for not reporting the puncture wounds in the victim's back? What exactly is the Black Cloak made of, and what kind of tech does it use? These are 3 I could think of that needs to be wrapped up so that the whole truth behind the case can be uncovered. Though part of me wants to say the first question has been answered in a detail I missed. Like maybe those were perks Torres got from his time in the crime unit or something. If there are any loose ends I missed, I'm sure they'll be resolved in the next chapter. Actually, writing that caused me to once again lengthen the scene between Torres, Elma, and Cruz in the next chapter, because it was much shorter than it wound up being this time. A lot of that dialogue was not there because I didn't think I needed it. But yeah, it definitely helped me, because I'm like, yeah, you know what, I should definitely, because Solomon, he just woke up, so and Cruz still wants to know exactly what it is that happened, so I had all that put in there after the fact, and I hope that all helped and answered most of the questions, hopefully, that were being asked. I hope I didn't miss anything, and if I did, I probably only did because I assumed that everything was that I answered it. Like the Black Cloak, it's not really made of anything special. It's this little computer chip that's attached to it that communicates with the other program to make it move around. The Black Cloak, on the other hand, is just a black cloak that he fashioned out of mirror stuff. You know, it's like if you walk around in the dead of night wearing black, it's gonna be pretty hard to see you. Yeah. I don't know what they're gonna do with the cloak. Probably just burn it or something. I don't know. Keep it as a memento, maybe, like Batman in his cave. Okay, here's chapter 7. No more ghosts. I've been going too long. Overclock red and blue, huh? Pretty soon there's gonna be an overclock bargain sale or something. Though it's more like Kaioken than Super Saiyan from how it works. Though the red and blue aspect reminds me of Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue, and the red-blue dynamism in series like Mega Man, Ace Attorney, and Sonic. Yeah, basically, like I imagine that the aura that surrounds them is very Super Saiyan-like. You know, I completely forgot the Kaioken was red though. I wasn't in my head at all. The whole time I wrote those scenes, all I thought about was Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue. So yeah, originally it's just a white aura, like a natural power-up aura from Dragon Ball Z, more like that. But Cruz and Janix were able to basically adapt to it in a more unique way for the both of them, which is why it took on that unique color. I know it's a joke, but I wonder which divisions wind up in the MMC more than any others. My bet's on the Pathfinders, at least early on into exploring Mirror. Yeah, probably, since they were the ones who were literally finding the paths. You know, shouldn't Cruz and Janix still be in their pods before they wake? And just thinking back to the end of Chapter 5 of XCX and what happened with Orton and Nagi's second AM, the effect of Alexa hitting Janix's chest wouldn't be totally lost either if she's just hitting the pod, though that'd be more impactful if, say, Janix was going put to sleep for a long time. Other than that, some skeleton level foreshadowing made its way in here. Yes and no. I realized that later. I realized that as I was writing it, but I thought, they didn't change it. Cruz should have woken up in the pod, definitely. Janix, she doesn't do the pod thing. She doesn't do the, she hates it. Like, you know, the stasis surgery puts you to sleep. Granted, she was knocked out this time around, but that was more of an unintentional thing. But if she has her way, no, she doesn't do the pods. She really does. She really hates that shit. Getting her into a pod is like getting a cat into a carrying case that they don't want to be in. They will bite you. They will scratch you. They will kick you. But yeah, so if anything, I would, if I wanted to, I could go back and change it so Cruz was actually woken up in a pod. But Janix, I think she's fine waking up not in one. No eye patch for Janix. Sadness. Really wish they gave the option to have heterochromia for the avatar, even in the Japanese version, as far as I know. Hope can have it. Why not us? Yeah, it'd be really awesome. That's a habit Janix is going to have to keep in check from now on, especially around Alexa. I was wondering what you were talking about, but then I reread the chapter, and it was her flirting with Sinclair. Not Sinclair. She flirted with Sinclair in the previous chapter. But, no, Iris Falcon, the doctor, right, who's married anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just I love writing that. Just, you know, that part of her character is still there. You know, even when she's with Alexa, but Alexa's the one she goes to home with at night. She's the one who she sleeps next to in bed, so it ultimately doesn't matter. I don't think so. But yeah, I definitely think I'll at least that maybe in some way she'll turn it down a bit. I wonder how Torres was able to remain anonymous regarding the proposal to Benton. It's not like letters are still used in 2056, let alone on Mira. I'm also guessing that Benton was also threatened to write off those puncture wounds in the back, or knew that it was in fact related to the missing tube and played coy to preserve his life. Yeah, probably a combination of those two. I actually meant to log that part in also with the threats, but once again, I didn't. I guess part of me was like, there was just something in my head that said it would be weird for the Phantom to threaten Benton and to not use to like ignore and tamper with the reports. I think he mostly tampered with them himself once again to play coy and to make himself not seem guilty of anything. Glad that we have closure on Cruz's past, at least for now anyways. I wouldn't count on his past being absolutely spotless or that no one in NLA remembered him from the engineering team or Alpha Wolf. Vandom aside, unless again he's letting Cruz forge his own path, as I suspected last review. Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm really curious if I'm going to do anything with Cruz's past. She wasn't in it too much, but I'm surprised there wasn't a single peep of Skell jargon from Alexa at any point. Guess that's how much she's smitten with Janix, and how much she likes Scubweed too. Yeah, she really likes Scubweed. And there was really, I realized that too after I finished the story. I'm like, huh, there was, like, she was still being adorable and peppy, but she didn't really have a lot of, she didn't ever bring up Skells, I guess because they were never brought up. But yeah, I was surprised by that too after I finished the story. I'm like, huh, maybe she should have said something. I mean, at the same time, once again, this is a month after they get together, so I guess they've kind of figured out a bit in terms of their interaction. But I'd like to think that early on, Janix, Alexa avoided talking about Skells, specifically because, you know, Janix is the way she is. But maybe eventually they just kind of got over it. Sort of, maybe. Like, she still avoids talking about it, but when she can, it's, you know, it's fine. Totally allowed. So the one loose end I can't think of that wasn't ever really uncovered was Tora's connection with Hill and how he got the materials required to make the cloak. Ah, well, not every mystery of crime can end so cleanly in real life. It'd be a miracle if they did. Can't wait to see what the next three fics have in store. Yeah, I was thinking about that, honestly, after I read that, but I suppose, you know, the story's done, everything's over. At the end, it doesn't really matter. He didn't really have a connection with Hill. It's just that Hill had the information about the cloak, and so he decided, yeah, I should probably kill this guy just in case. And also to get his piece of the cloak back. Man, this went on way too long. All right, let's hopefully hit these last two up very quickly, except that we can't. I kind of want to talk more about Phantom though. Oh right, I want to talk about the alternate endings. Shit, this video is gonna be stupid long. Oh man, like literally the last one, the 40-minute one, was uploading for over 24 hours because the internet here sucks. Anyway, there were some alternate endings that I had in mind for this, I think, and I can't remember what they were now. There was obviously Solomon dying as well, but I scratched that one out. Oh, there was actually another ending where Tora and Solomon, neither of them were the Phantom, and this was based off a Legend of Korra fanfic idea I had a long time ago that I eventually did nothing with because I lost all inspiration to write it. But I wrote a Legend of Korra fanfiction called I'd Do Anything, and there was supposed to be a sequel called You're My Everything. So both stories together are the Anything and Everything series. I thought that was pretty cool. And in the You're My Everything series, Korra was supposed to be fighting a crazed firebender that kind of like manipulated their own, what's the word? Just like through some weird potion stuff, they just fucked with themselves basically, and they were capable of using green fire. The problem is that the green fire was like incredibly harmful to them themselves as well, so it's like kind of rotting their body as they used it. And in the end, when Korra finally unveiled who this killer was, because it was also a serial killer type thing, he refused to tell her who she was because it didn't matter. You know, he felt like his whole crusade meant more than who he was, and he ended up dying anonymously, and it was never found out who he was. That was the same thing that I had going on here. There was a point where I decided, let's not make Torres the Phantom. Let's make the Phantom someone else completely unrelated. Just a nobody who decided to do this out of some feeling of making the world right again, sort of thing, in their own really twisted view. And that was an idea that I was very convinced almost to write until I ended up to being like, nah, I don't think that'll be as satisfying for some people. Like, from an artistic standpoint, I think it's pretty cool, or at least very interesting in a way, but I felt like that since the beginning, Torres was always going to be the Phantom. There was a brief time where I was considering Solomon, but it was always going to be Torres, the assistant. And that was an idea that came as I was writing the story. I'm like, what if it was a nobody, you know? And it didn't really matter who they were. But I think that would also require even more explaining, or not even, or just like not even explaining how they did anything because no one even knew who they were. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. Overclock is gonna be fun. I can now use that at any point in the story in my stories from this second onward. So I can't wait.